So can I invite the very dynamic Farah, the beautiful Suchitra, and the fresh rising star Kelvin? Yes, thank you. All right. So as this is the last, panel for the conference, I hope to be able to play a little quiz game with my fellow panelists. I have provided everyone yellow papers and a marker to write their thoughts, so we can all hear from them all at the same time rather than asking each person individually. So to start off, I know I've introduced them as dynamic and fun and everything, but can I ask our panelists to introduce yourself by writing your name and giving the first adjective of your first letter of your first name. So for example, I'm Stacey, so I speak very fast, so I could be called Speedy Stacey.
Want this written down?
Yeah, I just want your first, I don't know what F stands for, but yeah, we could play around with that. Okay, so Farah is ready. So we have fantastic Farah over here. This will be the name I'm constantly referring to you as well.
Oh, that's a good choice.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I did play this game once, and I had someone with K, and he called himself Kanchong, so...
Kanchong.
Yeah. All right, and come on, Such and Kel. All right, so we have Kelong, Kelvin, and we have...
And this is not so I can avoid answering the questions, but I put shy.
Oh, it's shy Suchitra. Oh,
Sorry,
gosh.
Oh,
do we want to, yeah.
It has to be up, isn't it?
Okay, can I please ask Fantastic Farah to share with us, because I'm going to leave shy Suchitra for the last, to share with us, give me an example of how your company is undergoing digital transformation.
Okay, so disclaimer, I am not obviously a risk manager.
Yeah.
I'm just a filler here, really. Thank you all for coming anyway. Filler Farah. Yeah, that's good. So we as a marketing unit, one of the things that has been most challenging, I have to say, with regards to digital transformation is the adoption of our customer relationship management system. So we decided last year to buy into off-the-rack system, which was, I like to make things simple. So it's adaptable like a Lego set, like my son's Lego set. It's called Salesforce.
Yeah, I know Salesforce.
So we use Salesforce now, but it's been a struggle in the last 12 months to roll it out. And the reason it's been a struggle is because of people. Because people are inherently averse to change. And anything, and as you say, Stacey, anything, and the focus should be on the word transformation.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be on the word digital. Digital is a mere facilitation of getting something done quicker. But I think the transformation in the way the team worked, the transformation in the mindset, I think, of accessibility of information, the fact that I could be in Hong Kong responding to a call report from a business development director on the spot was very unnerving. Unnerving for me because it required me to also be constantly on the ball, as it were.
Yeah.
But there's also a level of transparency that brings with it that mindset change, the required mindset change. So off the cuff of my head, at the top of my head, yeah, that's been our journey in the last 12 months.
Yeah, I think most of the digital transformation projects I've been on is if the CEO is not on board, you can't go anywhere with it. That's always the first step. Yeah. Thanks. And Kelvin, maybe on to you in terms of your healthcare industry.
No, so firstly, it's not healthcare. So I think part of the challenge when I always explain is first I have to always explain what my company does, because hands up, how many of you know what International SOS does as a business? Right, so not the large majority. So and even for those that raise their hand, most of the time the first response that I get is, you guys are the emergency evacuation guys, right? Which is true, but that constitutes 1% of the activity that the company does, right? So that's always a challenge. So I'm going to ask another question, and because I have a friend from the aviation industry, how many of you took a plane to attend this conference to come to KL, right? How many of you know what happens if you fall sick in a plane, if you're not feeling well in a plane? what actually happens, right? So most of the time, the first port of call is you're going to say, is there a doctor on board, right? And if you're lucky, there's one, he or she might respond. The other thing that they will do is they might actually call somebody, and they will call a phone on the plane to a remote doctor to seek medical advice on the condition. And my company provides that service to a large majority of airlines around the world. So medical assistance, what we call travel risk management. We also provide the medical kits on board the plane as well, so that when the stewardesses is taking advice from a medical doctor, they are actually looking at the kit and say you should administer this particular medication, is packaged in red, we avoid the jargon, and then this is how you should treat them. More importantly, one of the biggest costs of our airlines is usually around flight diversion, right? So the pilot has to make a call whether the medical condition is serious enough to divert the flight, and it's a cost to the airline company. The decision is usually left to the pilot. They make the ultimate call, but you want it to be grounded with some medical input. So my doctor's based remotely somewhere else is existing the pilot to make that decision. Say, my medical opinion is that this guy is in a stable enough condition, you can fly to your destination and then get him to a hospital there, right? So we do this whole supply chain of medical assistance, what we call travel risk management to that. In addition to that, we also take care of the crew, because another big cause of delay for a lot of airlines is usually the turnaround. When your crew falls sick, you cannot turn a plane around in time. So we also provide on-the-ground medical support to the crew. So when you talk about digital transformation...
Thanks for getting back to it.
Yes. When you talk about digital transformation, as with most companies, the key to the driver for digital transformation is around how do we make more money efficiently, right? As with most companies do. So where I've been seeing a lot of digital transformation is in the service delivery. So if we take the example of how my company provides support to the crew on the ground when they land, what would have typically happened if the crew landed, they are in a foreign country, they're not well, they call us, we refer them to a doctor online to talk to them, they say, you're okay, have a Panadol, have a lie down, that's fine, or you're not okay, let's get you to a clinic, and by the way, you're in India, you go to this clinic, this doctor speaks English, great. How do we shorten that time? So now what we do is, they have a phone, they have an app, they have a telemedicine. So instead of them going to a doctor, the doctor is coming to them. They are logging onto an app, they are having a video interface with a doctor who is doing a consultation with them. Then we can very quickly shorten the time that is needed. If you are in India or even if you're in KL with the rain, the traffic, getting physically to a clinic is going to be a challenge. So we bring the doctor to you, right? So this is an example of a digital transformation that the company is seriously engaging in. In fact, it's already live. We call it telemedicine, we call it telehealth. We are bringing doctors via the app. And then the challenge of that, so I saw a lot of comments that Stacey made which really resonated about how the innovation is quicker and regulation follows later and all that sort of stuff. And this is a classic example. And also then from a risk manager point of view, the challenge of the market to keep up with the innovation of the business, right? So firstly, from a regulatory point of view, the doctors, right? So my doctor could be physically based in London, treating a Malaysian air stewardess who is now in India. Which country's regulation actually apply in terms of medical regulation, which is a very heavily regulated industry. So that's a real physical challenge that I have in terms of regulating that. And then if you expand that from a risk management point of view, which is what I'm concerned about, one of the biggest exposure to the company is the medical liability, the medical malpractice liability. So firstly, when I share like, oh, my company is doing a new business with my medical malpractice insurer, it's a challenge for them to understand this business in the first place because it's quite complex. Then obviously the next obvious question is this covered? And you can imagine the conversations we have like about, oh, does this apply in the scope of cover? Which is the medical legal regulations we have to look at when there's a liability claim being brought forth against you, and so on and so forth. So this is the very real kind of example that I've been. Unfortunately, and I will put my hand up that as a risk manager, I am trying to do a better job of being at the forefront of the conversation. Unfortunately, most of the time it's still coming to us after the product and solution has been put forth to the market. We are going to sense test it, and then they come around and say, what do you guys think? And obviously by then we might have a lot of questions. It's a lot more challenging to change a product that is almost ready to launch. You don't want to be the guy that says, no, we should look at it again. We should change certain things and we're not ready and you're going to take another 6 months. So then the challenge is how do you say yes while making sure that, okay, this is the kind of flexibility I'm going to have to work with the market, with the insurer, and this is some of the considerations we can put in place to then be able to say yes and go to market. Because everybody wants to go to market as quickly as possible. Every company now is talking about being more entrepreneurial. You want to fail fast, you want to fail quick, you want to know what went wrong so that you can fix it and then go to market again. And how do you support that and not be seen as the guys like, okay, let's talk to him last because he's always the one that has the most issues and let's put him in a position where he can't say no.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that guy. But you want to be able to do your job and to be able to support that innovation as well.
Correct, because like most of these things that happen, it's all about don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness later. And unfortunately, yes, it's the risk manager's job to then say, but I'm the one that is supposed to be giving you that permission and you're not coming to me. I'm sure you must have that frustration as well, Suchitra, in where you're working in. So tell us more about AirAsia and its digital transformation efforts.
Okay, sure. So I joined AirAsia 8 months ago. And actually, a really exciting time to join because if you follow Tony Fernandez, my boss, on Instagram or LinkedIn, or you read the papers, you'll know that he speaks a lot about the digital transformation.
Yeah.
And actually, Irene, who heads the digital push at the moment at AirAsia, was quoted just a couple of days saying, "We are going to be a digital company who happens to transport passengers." So that's the way we're actually looking at it. So from our ultimate core business, which is flying passengers, every point of it is actually going through a digital transformation. So from the moment you book, and at the moment 80% of our sales are done online, so we're trying to make that experience better for passengers. To the point you get to the airport as well. So now you'll probably see a lot of, especially in Changi, a lot of the baggage drop, that's all automated. Immigration, if you go to Johor Airport, we have this system called Faces, which is facial recognition, so you don't have to go through the immigration line. So at each point, and then when you get on the plane, we're now introducing the system called Dolly, which is if you want to buy food or duty-free, that's all done on an EPOS system, which is connected to the main AirAsia server. So the whole process from when you book your ticket to when you fly to when you get off the plane is all being digitized. And then if you sit in the office like I do, that is going through a huge digital transformation too. So, and I think I spoke about this in PARIMA in Bangkok. We don't actually use emails anymore as a mode of communication, barely. So we have Workplace, which is Facebook for work, and all our communication goes through that. So it's a very fast, innovative way of communicating. A couple of weeks ago, we had a network outage, and all that communication was done through work chat, which is instant. So you can set up a group, Tony's on that group, Irene's on that group, and it's just instant communication. So as a risk manager, I'm really having to challenge the norm of everything I've known before, that traditional form of communication, and having to adapt to AirAsia and what they're trying to achieve.
I think there's the amount of new tech that you've just been speaking about is just insane. And from a company's point of view, to be able to manage that or even understand it and then speak about it is also another big hurdle. It's a lot about getting your people to be able to talk about that in the right way as well.
Absolutely, and you spoke earlier in your presentation about people and culture, right, and how important that is. So if you think about AirAsia, we employed 24,000 people globally, mostly within Asia. But if you think about that, at least 6,000 of them are cabin crew, pilots, who don't really think about digital as part of their job scope, right? But that's going to have to change as well because they're also going to have to be facilitators and users of this digital era, if you like. So the whole thing, whether you are sitting in the head office or you're flying, the whole company, there is a complete push, and no one, I think, can be sort of outside of that circle.
Okay. So I think shifting it to now, we've talked a lot about digital. What's the main key risk or main digital risk that you're most concerned about? Flash. And if the audience wants to participate via the questions as well, please feel free. Yeah, we can hunt down these guys with questions. We can predict what actually they will say. Cyber, privacy. Please share. So privacy, and reputational damage. Okay, so can I just get maybe, I think Such got a fairly interesting privacy.
Data privacy
Yeah.
as well, yeah. So, you know, as I spoke about this whole digital push at AirAsia, what we're trying to do, and actually our customer services sort of function is no longer called customer services, it's called customer happiness, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. We're trying to make customers happy.
Okay.
And in doing that, what we need, obviously, is to get insights. So if you fly with AirAsia, Stacey, and we know that you like to go to Thailand or you fly to Singapore or Hong Kong, we try and get those preferences and try and then do either digital marketing or make sure that you get the best emails that would suit you. I mean, the whole thing, right? We're trying to personalize it. And then around the core business of aviation, we have a lot of other peripheral ventures. So one of them is called Big Pay, which is a prepaid credit card. So, for example, if you're going to Hong Kong, you might use that, and so we can even sort of see what your where you like to shop, what restaurants you like to go to. So there's a whole lot of data, but with that, of course, comes risk, right? And so, you know, you can move very fast and try and get all those insights, but of course, you've always got to protect the data of passengers. And that's sort of from an internal perspective as well, because, like I said, we employ a lot of people. So we need to make sure that we're getting these data insights right, but also that people internally are not abusing the data that they get, which can happen and has happened at various companies. So that is something, and even though, you know, you mentioned GDPR, and it's not necessarily in Asia as you know, as strongly just yet, but it's something I think that we need to think very strongly about, because, you know, Tony is your typical entrepreneur. He moves at 1,000,000 miles an hour, so it's up to the likes of my team to make sure that we're always sort of moving along with him, but just understanding what the risks are as we move and sort of look at more data.
Yeah. And do you want to add, Kelvin? Because I was gonna skip you and move to Farah. So Farah, tell us why you chose. He called Kelvin for a reason. Yeah. So why did you choose social media reputational damage as your key risk?
Speed. I could send a WhatsApp now to all of you immediately, and you'll all have the information like that. I don't have to wait for you to buy a paper, get to the right page, be interested in the headline anymore. It's pushed to you. So, you know, from a marketing point of view, that whole concept of pushing information has, I mean, the transformation, it's not even a transformation, it's a complete shift in the way people consume data, consume information. And as a marketeer, it is extremely painful to keep up. As a marketeer of an international financial center, you magnify that by a gazillion. After the Panama Papers, you magnify that by 250,000 trillion. Every morning, I wake up, and the first thing I do is reach for my phone. My husband's pissed off with me, I know, but I do it. Because overnight, something might have happened. The EU could have blacklisted a list of jurisdictions. We never know. Yeah. And things move so quickly. And the worst thing is, right, like Suchitra, you're talking about controlling access to that information. I have no control. I have absolutely no control. If something were to go viral on Labuan that is wrong, how do I control that? How do I go out and say, I'm sorry, that is wrong because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. People have the attention span of a 5-year-old now, or maybe less. I need to get that message out. I need to get that message quick. I need for it to resonate and fall like a ton of bricks so that it just stops. So really, it's a huge worry for me. It's a huge worry.
I think that's also been the worry of a lot of our members as well, because now they're all talking about, well, crisis, reputational damage. These are things that they are trying to get more services and more information about as to how can they prepare their board to rehearse and quickly react as well.
Yeah. Like, you know, you go through this BCP. When I was working at the stock exchange, we went through every quarter a BCP exercise where you all go off-site and all the rest of it. Who has the time for that anymore? Do you know, I'm not a risk manager, but I cannot imagine who has the time. And then, you know, you're expecting a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, you have to get your clothes on and all the rest of it. It's just, it doesn't work like that anymore.
I know. Speaking about, and I think you've brought in a good point about the speed, the scale. And I think I've got a video to share with everyone, and I think it encapsulates a lot of the digital kind of technology that is being applied and the scale of it that's being like rolled out to. So I would like you to watch the video and write down the first word that comes to your mind when you see that video, or after you see the video. Can the AV crew please help me play that? Yeah, and this came out in 2016, so apologies if anyone has seen it before.
Do you realize how much our appearance changes with time? We're often unrecognizable to someone who hasn't seen us in 5, 10, or 20 years. This is particularly relevant in the case of a lost or abducted child, where the years change him or her into someone totally different than the face in the dated photos his family use in their desperate search. But QQ Alert is here to help. Equipped with facial recognition technology based on convolutional neural networks and facial feature extraction, we have conducted billions of trials using a 10 million sample database. Trained by deep learning analysis of the patterns of facial changes, its AI system is able to automatically integrate the traces of time and match a child with the adult he or she grows into with a 99.8% accuracy. Now, changes are no longer challenges. No matter how long your child's been missing, simply upload his or her photos to our cloud. QQ Alert is able to process a huge database at a rate of 50 million photos per second, instantly presenting results that can bring the lost child home. So far, QQ Alert has facilitated 286 rescues, reuniting 176 families. Technology is changing the world and helping that which was lost to be found. Though we cannot stop time, with ever-advancing technology, we can shorten the time it takes to bring the lost home. QQ Alert. Hope never dies.
So this came out in 2016 by Tencent with their unveiling of their latest technology and how they have applied it into the real world. I will start off with Kelvin first. You must have written down your word already. Please tell us why that's your first word.
Because if you overlay with this,
hey.
because if you overlay, so I wrote down data privacy as the main concern from a corporate point of view. And then when you look at this technology, this is the first thought that comes to mind, right? So it's fantastic, but how pervasive is this? And who is giving permission? These are the walls of a risk manager. We are paid to think like this, right? So if you overlay that as in I am concerned as a risk manager for SOS, I am concerned about medical information because we hold tons of that. And if you read the news recently, there were people hacking Sing Health trying to get the medical data of our Prime Minister. And actually, as a company, and I've shared this information before, we have been a target of cyber hacks, not because the company itself is a target, but because we were holding medical information of certain individuals that people wanted to get at, right? So, and then when you think about the kind of information now they are able to to then gain from a technology like this, and then whether are you getting the consent? Okay, fine. They are rolling this out in China where the concept of consent is non-existent. But then, but what about the rest of the world where you're trying to do business in, right? Because what's to stop them? So here they are obviously there's a narrative, right? So there's a marketing video. There's a narrative that's saying that we are using this technology for good. But the same technology can be used for, I don't know, spotting a political foe and trying to dig him out of a hole and remove him from the scene. Entirely plausible, and the limitation is your imagination. But the challenge as well is from a risk manager point of view, you cannot stop the development of this technology. It's impossible. It's not your job to say no, it's your job to say yes, and to make sure that when it comes to the point where there's a decision to be made about how do we use this, you give the input to make sure that it's used in the right manner, or at least something that you can agree with and you can live with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Such, what was your word?
So mine is definitely more boring than Kelvin's. But actually, when I watched that video,
what was your word?
What resonated was connecting people and processes, right? Because actually, and I spoke about this, with AirAsia. that is ultimately what we're trying to do, right? I mean, some of the things that we look at. I mean, recently AirAsia launched a partnership with Tinder, right? That's actually a fact. You know, and I would never have thought that actually, you know, legally, reputationally, you'd want to do that, but actually, it does have certain benefits, right?
There's some staff benefit as well.
I am not on there, FYI. So, so you know, some of the things that I look at and some of the future plans, and we look at our strategy, it amazes me and it scares me all at once. But as you say, Kelvin, I mean, I'm not there to be a disruptor. I'm not there to sort of be a hindrance to the disruption. I'm there to work with the business and just to make sure that we're moving at the same pace. So some of the things that we have planned, I mean, are phenomenal. And you look back and you think, I never would have imagined this could happen 5 years ago.
Exactly.
But the world is changing so quickly, you just got to be prepared for change.
Yeah. And Farah, what do you think? What was your word?
Don't be surprised.
Thankful for the technology. Because you have a 7-year-old.
And only because I have a 7-year-old. Only. If I didn't have a 7-year-old, I shouldn't say these kind of words, but I would be freaked out.
No, but that's the part about the narrative, right? Because like there's a saying in Chinese about how like the water can float or sink a boat. You know, so it's exactly the same thing, right? It is what it is, but it's how you use it. The technology is there, but then,
but the question then becomes then, how much trust can you give away? You know, the problem is the issue of trust, and you know, are entities, are corporate entities, bastions of trust? You know, can you trust them?
Does China not sound like the dystopian state that's described by George Orwell in
Yeah.
All right. So given that is the future that we're heading towards given that that's the disruption that we're seeing, can you write down a score of 1 to 10, 10 being very prepared and 1 being not at all? How prepared do you think risk managers are today to handle the technology disruption?
Us or generally?
Risk managers, generally.
Can I say us, me?
That's the next question. So I always love how this panel is always preempting my questions.
Difficult panel, you chose us.
Okay, so Kelvin, you're first. So 4 out of 10. And why not 3? Why not 2?
because we are getting closer to being passable. Average, I think there's a recognition that we are lacking, and I think that's the first step. It's always the awareness, because if you're not even aware that you're lacking, then you're not going to make that improvement. So I think at least there is a growing recognition that we are still not equipped as a profession to be dealing with this credibly.
Yes.
Then it's about then what are we doing to make sure we are. So not ready yet, but hopefully we'll be there sooner.
And Suchitra, what was your score? 3.
Yeah. And so why? I mean, you know, as you said, Stacey, right? I mean, so many conferences talk about digital disruption, and we hear about it all the time. And so it's one thing for risk managers to attend these things, listen to it, go home and think, right, okay, I think I know a bit more. Yeah. But another thing to execute it at work. And as a risk manager, you can have the skills and think, you know, you have enough knowledge to execute it, but it also depends on the business involving you in their digital transformation for you to actually be part of it. As I said, you know, at AirAsia, there's so many things going on, and just like, you know, like you said, Kelvin, am I part of every single thing? No, not at this point in time. I mean, AirAsia is still a very entrepreneurial company, so, you know, it takes time for this sort of culture to set in. So I think I give it 3 just because it is a sort of dual-pronged, approach. You can be prepared, but you need the business to involve you in it as well.
Yeah, exactly. And Farah, you changed your answers many times.
It's a bit like school. I used to do that in school as well. First I did 3, 4 out of 10, and then when Kelvin said 4 because there's an awareness issue, I reduced it to 3.
Because you feel that risk managers just do not have that?
Because I think risk managers, and I'm speaking as a third party, so I like to disclaim what I'm saying here, but I think risk managers have an appreciation of what's going on. I don't think risk managers are given the time to appreciate what's going on. I think risk managers have problems with regards to what they're expected to do, the entire menu of bits they're expected to do. And I think there isn't enough C-suite appreciation as to how to get risk managers more involved in game-changing matters and issues like this. So 3.
And maybe let's ask the audience. So with a show of your hands, if we can see, what do you guys think in terms of 1 to 10? How prepared do you think risk managers are? And if I can just ask for a show of hands right about now. 5, 3.
No one has an opinion.
No one has an opinion. 2. Yeah. So I think it's the average score that we're seeing. And given that you guys are board members and long-term, PARIMA partner supporters, what do you think you are personally, on a scale of 1 to 10, ready for the disruption? So Farah is a 2. Kelvin, you are a?
I'll say probably a 5.
So you're better than the average.
Whoa.
No, because I think there's a first start, right? So at least I can hand on that, say, like, it partially reflects the unique dynamics of International SOS as a privately owned company. So I can at least hand on heart say, I have sat down with my CEO and have conversations with this over the last 6 months, face to face, which I think is a start. I'm not saying it's perfect, but at least I'm having that time to sit down with my CEO. I'm asking him what is his issue, how can I help? Can I help him? That's what I'm trying to find out. But at least I have the access, and then so at least I can't say that, oh, my challenge is I can't get to my CEO and I can't engage with my CEO. So I have crossed that first barrier.
Yes.
Part of this is reflective of the fact that it's a privately owned company. The owners and CEO and is still very actively involved. He genuinely sees a value in what the risk management team is doing. So I have that. Then obviously now the onus is then back on myself and the team to be able to then engage with the business people to make sure we are part of the conversations, and then like can we show our value to be part of this supply chain, right? So and that to me is probably the easier part, like getting that meeting with my CEO, because he's always trying to say yes as well. He said, you want an hour with me? You've got an hour. So that's not the difficult part. The difficult part is making sure he comes out from the hour thinking that it's an hour well spent with the risk management team. That's my bigger challenge. Yeah.
Exactly. And Suchitra, what about yourself?
So I put 4, and my average was 3. And the reason I say that is because I just said, the business has to support the risk manager, right? So in January this year, AirAsia as the management team was restructured. So Tony sits obviously as a CEO, and then you've got 2 deputy group CEOs, one for the airline business and one for the digital business, right? And given airline is all about flying passengers, you think a lot of the risks emanate from that area. But actually, I report to Irene, who's the deputy group CEO of the digital, because actually, the way they look at it is if this airline is going to be sustainable, then actually risk management needs to be part of that digital push. And so that in itself, being part of that conversation in itself, I think sets AirAsia, a step above a lot of other organizations that I see.
Yeah, and since you're holding the mic, what else are you doing to push yourself forward up the scale of preparedness?
Well, in terms of preparedness, and one thing you touched on earlier was Excel spreadsheets, right?
Yes.
And certainly at AirAsia, that absolutely does not work. People don't even have landlines. That's how kind of, the connectivity is. So I realized very quickly that Excel spreadsheets were just not going to work. So everything, again, has to be done on Workplace. So that is the form of communication. And again, that was a mindset shift for me because I've always sort of looked at it in a very traditional fashion. And even in terms of the awareness, going to meetings and telling people about risk management doesn't really work anymore. So I've had to come up with, and I know we're having this conversation, I've had to come up with animation on risk management and making it fun and exciting for people. And so in terms of being prepared, I think I'm having to push the boundaries of creativity as a risk manager. So heat maps, risk registers, in my organization, they just don't work anymore. It's always just about thinking
next level.
One step ahead, and actually, what is Tony going to be worried about, and how am I going to present that in the best way? And Excel spreadsheet's not going to be it.
Yeah. And Farah, what about yourself? 2, a long way to go.
Yes, because I think first and foremost, we all need to understand what we're up against. I think once we understand that, then we can move forward. I think as someone who is running an organization and not focused entirely on risk, that's that challenge. And I unfortunately don't have a risk manager to turn to.
Maybe you
know?
should have.
We're not big enough, but yes, the risk management unit of the Labuan Financial Services Authority comes in, assesses our risks on a strategic point of view. Some of it is operational risk. A lot of it is jurisdictional risk. So what we carry is jurisdictional risk, and that then becomes a very complex area. It's not so much about the end client. It's about 1,000,001 different balls up in the air at the same time. So you've got the Malaysian jurisdictional, the Malaysian sovereign issues, you've got the jurisdiction issues, you've got people issues, you've got regulator issues, you've got legal issues, reg issues. Yeah.
It brings in the point of the dynamic stakeholder management.
Absolutely.
And the fact that you need to be more organizational, what we call organizational savviness, plays a lot more important role, I guess,
Yeah.
in the near future.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add, Kelvin? Or you sound like you were going to pick up the mic.
Well, I was going to make a point about the dynamic stakeholder management, because I think that is really key. Because like if I share about my company, like Suchitra was mentioning about restructuring, and my company has undergone several reorganization structures over the last three years, just in response to the prevailing market conditions, and it's usually done with the best of intentions in terms of ensuring service efficiency to the clients.
Yep.
But the implications are always not felt until it's done, and that's what I am always constantly trying to navigate the landscape of like, okay, now this region is different, this country is here, the management is there. How does it impact the way we are talking to people? How do I make sure that they are proactively coming to me to tell me about their issues with this new structure and management? And a lot of that is about dynamic stakeholder management and strength of the relationship that you are developing with each of the regional teams.
Correct. And I think a lot of times the fact that building that risk culture and awareness is not a service provider product or service that they provide for you, right? Let's flip that question around. A lot of people here are insurers and from the market. If you were an insurer for your company, what would excite you most in this age of new disruption? It's like how would
Possibility of more premiums?
Well, let's remove cost away from that. Let's talk about you are now your ideal insurer for yourself. What will you be looking out for?
Well, the dream would be to be able to have the insurance coverage tailored to my business and not by your products. So that's something that covers me end to end, and then from an insurer point of view, it's extremely sticky because if I just gave a description just now of one aspect of my business, right? But that whole aspect of my business, if I go to an insurer tomorrow, he's going to tell me, okay, there's the medical malpractice, there's the financial whatever, and then there's the this and there's that. There's like 5 different products you have to buy. I said, no, but can you think about my business and have a protection that covers my business from end to end? In terms of this is how I'm going to deliver to my client, and these are all my concerns that I have. So that would be like
the ideal world.
Yeah.
And Suchitra?
I mean, to echo Kelvin, really. So, of course, we have aviation insurance, aircraft liability, all of that sort of stuff. But, as I said, we are no longer just an aviation or airline company, right? We are a digital company that will transport passengers. So actually, I don't know if this is even possible, but again, something that was really tailored to that whole end-to-end process that really incorporates that whole digital view and all the elements that takes you from point A to your final destination. That actually would be amazing to me. Whether that's the panacea that exists or not, I don't know, but.
Yeah, and Farah, I'm not going to put you on the spot. Do you want to answer this question or?
I just don't want any risk. I'm just tired of risk, to be honest with you. Tired of it. I'm keeping ahead of it, understanding that there's one that might be created. Like you wake up one day, you've got 10 risks to worry about. The next morning, you've got 11.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would just just force risk to slow down a little bit.
And that really echoes a lot of what people in the company feel because they just don't want to think about it. And that's where the risk professionals need to start stepping up because they are the ones that are embracing these risks and they're the ones that are having that conversation and needs to have that kind of power and authority to bring it up. And I think that nicely concludes where we are today in terms of how risk managers can encapsulate or handle the digital disruption. So I hope that this has been a useful and fun panel for everyone, and thank you very much for giving us that opportunity to talk about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for the moderator and members of the panel.